Namaste, Namaste viewers. Welcome to this another session in the celebration of Bhagavad Adi Shankaracharya Jayanti in form of a global festival of oneness. We are almost at the fag end of the festival, couple of days remaining. I will start this session by some chanting. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada सर्वमंगलमांगल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यंबके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। ओम सदाशिव सदा समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वंदे गुरु परंपरां। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। वसुदेव सुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतः क्लेशनाशाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतंगमय। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सहनावतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। समस्तेषु वस्तुष्वनुस्यूतमेकं समस्तानि वस्तूनि यन्न स्पृशन्ति यद्वत्सदा शुद्धमच्छस्वरूपस्य नित्योपलब्धिस्वरूपोऽहमात्मा नाहं देहो नेन्द्रिय याण्यन्तरङ्गो नाहङ्कारः प्राणवर्गो न बुद्धिः दारापत्यक्षेत्रवित्तादिदूरः साक्षिर्नित्यः प्रत्यगात्मा शिवोऽहम्। किं ज्योतिस्तव भानुमानहनिमे रात्रौ प्रदीपादिकं स्यादेवं रविदीपदर्शनविधौ किं ज्योतिराख्याहि मे चक्षुस्तस्य निमीलनादिसमये किं धीर्धियो दर्शने किं तत्राहमतो भवान् परमकं ज्योतिषदस्मि प्रभो। हरि ओम तत्सत्। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Viewers, today we are privileged to have our own Nithin Sridhar ji for giving the lecture on Shankar Bhagavadpada's outlook on Manusmriti. Incidentally, he has written the book on the Chatushloki of Manusmriti. Nithin Sridhar ji is a practicing Hindu. He is an author, speaker, and the director of Indica Center for Moksha Studies, dedicated to create, curate, and promote content on Hindu philosophy with special focus on Vedanta. He has authored 6 books and 1 book chapter dealing with various aspects of Hindu philosophy and practice. His widely acclaimed books include Menstruation Across the Culture, A Historical Perspective, Samanya Dharma, and Ishopanishad, an English commentary. His latest book is titled Chatushloki Manusmriti, is a commentary on first 4 verses of Manusmriti. He regularly contributes on issues ranging from politics, society, and to religion, culture, and philosophy to various media platforms, and teaches courses on Indian knowledge system subjects at Indica courses. Over to you, Nitin ji. Please start your lecture.
Thank you, Sanjay ji, for the introduction. Namaste, everyone. Let me start with a prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Swatha Namostute Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murte Namaha Shruti-Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavadpadam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Bharati Karunapatram Bharati Padabhushanam Bharati Padamaruಢam Bharati Tirthamashraye Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvajnam Vidushekhara Bharatim Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So, the topic of my talk is Adi Shankaracharya's outlook towards Manusmriti. It is a bit different from the normal topics we host in our global festival of oneness. Everybody knows about Shankaracharya's works on Prasthana-Trayi Bhashya, with the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahmasutra, wherein he goes deep into these Vedantic texts. But what often goes unnoticed is his nuanced treatment of a genre of texts called Smritis, the Smriti literature, and even in that particularly the Manusmriti. The talk is, I think, is very important, or the topic is important because today there is a lot of, especially those who know about Manusmriti or who have heard of the name. The first thing that comes to mind is a lot of it is a bad text, it is a outdated text, it is a hegemonic text, it is it excludes people, it is problematic, oppressive. So these are the kind of a lot of negative discourse has been built over the last 200 years. And the discourse, while the Manusmriti is burned and abused and misunderstood, the entire Smriti literature also faces, is sidelined from any discourse today. So, and let us, okay, well, let us accept for at least for argument's sake that there may be certain issues which could be problematic seen from the contemporary lens. But that should not be a reason for complete sidelining when there are much more things in the Dharmashastras which are very useful, which are very relevant, and which are need of the hour. So it is my fun conviction, because we all speak about Dharma, we all speak about Sanatana Dharma, but we have been continuously ignoring the texts which exclusively speak about Dharma, namely the Dharmashastras, which are the Smritis, the Smriti literature, most prominent of which is Manusmriti. So in that context, even when I interact with a lot of Vedanta seekers, students, teachers, and all, I have found it that many are either many new seekers, Vedanta followers are not even aware that, for example, Shankaracharya even cites Manusmriti, or they're even though they may be aware, they are not comfortable with it, or there are many academic works which says that Shankaracharya's treatment of Manusmriti is merely a restatement of the prevalent social conditions then. So the question is this really so? So a detailed exploration is needed, and a small attempt is made in this short talk. It's just a 60 minutes talk. We cannot go into detail too much. But the aim of the talk is to explore Adi Shankaracharya's broad outlook towards Smriti literature, but particularly towards Manusmriti. And we will see, we'll try to understand Acharya's outlook towards Manusmriti as, as a significant part, it's as a text which is a significant part of the Dharmashastra corpus, and not as a, the contemporary academic approach of reducing Manusmriti to a legalistic text or a rigid text or something like that. So the exploration will shed light on how Adi Shankaracharya situates Manusmriti within the broader Hindu epistemic framework, the Shruti-Smriti Parampara, and his references, his way he approaches Manusmriti or way he describes Manusmriti can provide a key to reclaim how to approach the text beyond the colonial caricatures. So we will discuss some of this in this talk. Just a brief introduction. If you examine the Bhagavadpadacharya's Prasthana-Trayi Bhashyas and even other works, we will see that he was very familiar with Dharma and Dharmashastra. It is not that he is only concerned with moksha. I mean, the path to moksha goes through Dharma. Therefore, it is not possible to be only focus on moksha to the complete exclusion of Dharma. Therefore, we see that Bhagavadpadacharya is very, very familiar with not only Dharma, but also Dharmashastra tradition. So when I speak about Dharmashastra, in a more technical sense, it refers to the Smriti literature, the Manu, Yagnavalkya, other Smriti literature. But in a broader sense, it refers to all the texts starting from Veda to Itihasa Puranas, all of them which teach about Dharma. But in a more technical sense, it refers to all this Dharmasutras and Smriti genre of literature, which systematically present the teaching of Dharma. And we find that Bhagavadpadacharya quoting from a lot of these Dharmashastra texts, be it Apastamba Dharma Sutra, Gautama Dharma Sutra, Manusmriti, Atrismriti, Dakshasmriti, Mahabharata, Puranas, include such as Vishnu Purana, Brahma Purana, Linga Purana. And when it's not just in this Prasthana-Trayi Bhashyas, but also in other works such as Vishnu Sahasranama Bhashya, etc., you find these citations. And there is also a commentary attributed to Bhagavadpadacharya on Adhyatma Patala of Apastamba Dharma Sutra. However, as we will see in today's presentation, it will become very obvious that among all the Dharma texts, especially Acharya shows special affinity and reverence to Manusmriti, and we will see many instances of that in today's session. Just to give a brief idea, if anybody who is familiar with Bhagavadpada's work, you will know that in every instance, every argument that he makes, he always bases it on the Pramana. He always bases it on Shruti and other texts which are authoritative in nature. So two texts which, apart from the Upanishads, etc., he also routinely quotes from Gita and Mahabharata. Now, currently we are having a lot of debate in the social media. Many people say that every person has Bhagavad Gita at home, nobody has Manusmriti at home. They run polls on the Twitter, what was previously Twitter, and there is a lot of chatter that the only text that matters for a practitioner of Hindu Dharma is Bhagavad Gita. We don't need Manusmriti and all. But the fact is, somebody like Bhagavadpadacharya, he cites Mahabharata and Gita, etc., under the broad phrase of Smriti, and under the same phrase Smriti, he also cites Manusmriti and other Smritis and Dharmasutras also. So this should give an idea that for Bhagavadpadacharya, Manusmriti held as much authority, validity, and authenticity as Gita and Mahabharata. And similarly, we have examples of, as I mentioned, for example, in Brahmasutra Bhashya, at many places, Acharya's reverence to Manusmriti comes forth. In one place, he cites Vedic extolation of Manu as a medicine. In several places in the Veda, and particularly in one place, the Veda describes the Veda Samhita describes Manu as whatever Manu says is a medicine. That Beshajam. The Beshaja means medicine. So that means that though you may not like the medicine, the taste of the medicine, but it is all necessary for you. So that is the idea that Veda itself expresses towards Manusmriti, and Acharyagal cites this verse. In another place, he describes both Manu and Vyasa as Shishtas, and he repeatedly describes Manu as a knower of Veda, the follower of Veda, etc. We will see all these instances if time permits in some detail. And most importantly, if you can see the chart on the right side, you will see that he cites Manusmriti a number of times in various texts. In his commentary on Brahmasutra, he cites Manu 11 times. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, as many as 17 times. In Bhagavad Gita, 4 times. In different other Upanishad texts also 2 times, 3 times, etc. So it is not an isolated citation that in his whole works. It is true that he might have quoted Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, much more than Manusmriti. I have not done a study of that, how many times he cites them. So numbers is not per se evidence for importance of a text. That is true. Nevertheless, the fact that Bhagavadpadacharya is not citing Manusmriti just once or twice, but rather at 42 times in his works. And I have not included his citation of other Smritis, such as the Apastamba Dharma Sutra and other Atri Smriti and all that I mentioned. I have not included all of them here. So the fact that he has cited numerous times in numerous occasions show that at least for Acharyas, in his viewpoint, Manusmriti held a very important position on different matters of Shastriya discussion. Now, we will be look into some instances in some detail. Now, we have 42 citations. It is not possible to run through all of them. And I don't even want to run through, say, 10 or 15 or 20 citations, cover very quickly with short comments on each citation. Though many in the audience may prefer that kind of presentation. But I believe to really understand the heart of Bhagavadpadacharya, to understand his outlook, his attitude in a more authentic manner, it is better to study 2 or 3 instances in more detail to exactly understand the context of his citation of Manusmriti and his description of Manusmriti, rather than rushing through it. So towards this, I have picked up 3 or 4 instances based on the time we will look into it, as many as possible. And all of these instances are from Brahmasutra Bhashya itself. So, we will see them one by one. The first instance is from Devatadikaranam. If some in the audience, some of you had attended the morning session today, morning talk by Dr. Ganesh Ishwar Bhatji, it was precisely on this topic itself, Devatadikaranam, wherein he discussed about the physicality of Devatas. Now, while I will give a brief summary of the context here. My focus will be on his treatment of Manusmriti. So now this, the context, to put it in a single sentence, is the question that Badarayana takes up in this Adhikaranam is whether Devatas are eligible for Brahmagyana. Now, there was a funny instance recently on Twitter that somebody was telling, oh, we don't question whether Bhagavan can attain jnana or not. So the fact is, our ancestors have questioned and discussed all these things. So none of the theological questions were beyond discussions. So our ancestors, our rishis, our acharyas have always been open for the discussion. So this is one evidence for that. That Badarayana takes up boldly this question: are Devatas eligible for Brahmagyana? Now, on the right side, you will see the 3 sutras. It's a very long discussion, but the 3 sutras only relevant to us. And in the 26th Sutra, Badarayana simply says that yes, they are qualified. And then in the 27th Sutra, some objection from the opponent, the Purvapakshi, comes, to which he answers. And then he supplements these answers in the 28th Sutra. So we don't need to read the sutra word by word, but rather our interest is into understanding the sutra. What is of interest here is the 28th sutra, wherein the Badarayana supplements his argument by saying that it is proved by direct revelation and inference, that is pratyaksha and anumana, and we will see in detail what he means by it. So just to give for you to appreciate what the context of the discussion is, in his commentary on this Devatadikaranam, this particular portion, Shankaracharya observes that since the competency it has been established previously in the Brahmasutra itself and elsewhere also, that for practice of dharmacharana, that is for practice of karma-anushtana, such as be it doing agnihotradi ritualistic activities or varnashrama dharma and all these things, this karma-anushtana, the competency to practice karma-anushtana is only given to humans. So it is only for the manushya, that is the humans, these duties have been revealed in the Veda, the Shastras, Veda and other Shastras. So, and this is particularly denied to Devatas. So, for example, when somebody does a Vedic yajna, the Devatas are invoked in the fire and the offerings are made to them. But Devatas themselves don't do yajnas per se, because they don't have that adhikara. So, a doubt, a samshaya arises here. Is it the case that since Devatas do not have competency or eligibility to perform karma-anushtana, is it the case that they are also denied competency for Brahmagyana? So, since they don't have competency for practicing dharma-anushtana in the form of, varnashrama dharma and agnihotra, the ritualistic duties, is it that they cannot also pursue Brahmagyana or Atmagyana, however you call it, the transcendental knowledge? So, here, in response to this question, this doubt, Badarayana clarifies in Sutra 26. What Badarayana says is, Badarayana thinks that being higher than this, for that is possible. Higher than this means those beings who are higher than men. So not just the Devatas, but also other, Gandharva, Devatas, Apsaras, Gandharvas, and other beings that are understood in our Hindu cosmology. So even for all these beings, though they're outside, they're ineligible for Karmanushtana, Badarayana says they have competency for Brahmagyana. They can practice, pursue Brahmagyana and attain moksha. Here, Acharyagal, Shankaracharya, when I say Acharya, I mean Shankaracharya, then elucidates, he explains that the reason why Devatas are eligible. So now, Badarayana simply mentions that they are eligible for Brahmagyana. Shankaracharya ji is elaborating and explaining why they are eligible. So he says, Shankaracharya says that Devatas are eligible for Brahmagyana because the competencies needed for Brahmagyana is different from competencies needed for Karmanushtana. Right? Yeah, the eligibility criteria for practicing Varnashrama Dharma and other Karmanushtana is very, very different. And they are only applicable for humans, but not the Devatas. But in this case, in the case of pursuit of Brahmagyana, competency criteria are different. Acharya says that there are two important such competency or eligibility criteria is desire and ability. What are this desire and ability? Acharya then Shankaracharya clarifies that Devatas can also have mumukshutva, that is desire for liberation. Caused this, how does this desire come into devatas? It is caused by the reflection upon the impermanence of the divine glory. So while devatas live a long life compared to human life, they are not afflicted by sukha dukkha as the happiness, sorrow, etc. that the way we humans face. They are not bound by the kind of bondage that we face. Nevertheless, even devatas have their limitations. Devatas means here the reference is to Indradi devatas. Indra, Indra, Vayu, Agni, the Vasus and Rudras and all such devatas. Even they have the limitations. They have impermanence. So in the beginning of each cycle, a new Jivatma comes to the position of Indra. Right, so they also have limitation. There is also impermanence. Reflecting upon that impermanence, then they can develop this desire, burning desire for liberation. So therefore they are eligible to pursue moksha, eligible to pursue brahmagyan. Similarly, they also have the ability to pursue. It is not just enough that we have the desire, we should also have the competency. Just like I may say that I have desire to become IAS officer, but I should also have the competency, ability to put in the study required, put in the other qualifications required to actually pass the exam to become an IAS officer. Similarly here, Shankaracharya says the among the abilities to pursue moksha are abilities such as brahmacharya and many other things, qualities that also we see from various Vedic mantras, Arthavada passages, etc., that devatas can also possess. They already possess. Why? How do the devatas possess all these qualities? Because we see from the Vedic mantra, Arthavada passages and other akhyanas, etc., that devatas also are endowed with bodies. Subtle bodies, sure, compared to human beings, their bodies are subtle, but still their bodies, nevertheless, there is an element of physicality there also. Now, in Sutra 27, we saw here that there is an objection from the opponent that this cannot be possible, there will be problems. What is that objection? The objection is that if Devata also have a body, then how are they able to be present at many places? So the opponent is taking it into in a very limited, narrow argument. Since humans have only one bodies, he says that devatas, if they have body, they each, Indra has one particular body, Varuna has one particular body. Now in your yajna, when we invoke them. So first they have to be physically present. Even if they are subtly present, we are not able to see them. Since they have one body, they can be present only in one place. But yajnas can happen simultaneously at different places. So then there is a contradiction here. How will that be possible? So in response to that, Badarayana and following him Shankaracharya notes that there is no need to assume that devatas have only one body. In fact, we see the evidence in the Vedas itself as well as in Itihasa Puranas that devatas are endowed in multiple bodies. So they can be present at hundreds or thousands or even infinite places at the same time. So they are not limited by like humans in the same body. And Shankaracharya also quotes from some places that even through yogic power we can even humans can attain multiple bodies. After this is the main discussion which are relevant to us. After this objection is answered, that Devata being endowed with body is not a problem. Then the Purva Pakshi in Sutra 28, he brings up another objection. He says that even then, it could be objected that this contradicts the very validity of the Vedic words. So this is a very important argument and more prominent, more challenging argument than the earlier one the Purva offered, because here he is attacking the very validity of the Veda. See the validity, why Veda is considered authoritative, authentic, authoritative source of dharma, or independent pramana, independent source of dharma, is because it is the traditional, the Mimamsaka, the Vedanta view is that the Vedic words, the Shabda, Veda Shabda, is based on the perception, on the knowledge. It's a perception of the eternal relation, Nitya, eternal relation that exists between the eternally present words and their eternal meanings. Let me repeat. The Veda Shabda is authoritative, is valid because the Veda Shabda is actually revealing us the eternal relation that exists between a word and its meaning, with both the word as well as the meaning being eternal. Now, the opponent says, if you say that devatas also have bodies, it means that they are also subject to birth and death, right? At the beginning of each cycle, the Indradi Devata comes, and at the end of the cycle, they go back. So they are all subjected to defects of birth and death, hence impermanence. So the opponent is saying, if devatas are non-eternal because they are endowed with body, then the very fact that Vedic words, then it implies that the Vedic shabdas, the shabdas such as Indra, Vasu, Rudra and other things, the Vedic words which denote these devatas, they are also non-eternal, because Vedas are non, the words are not, if you say that devatas have body and this body, they take birth and death, they are impermanent, they are non-eternal, then that makes the words which denotes these devatas also non-eternal. Therefore, Veda itself is not valid. So this is a very, very important objection. And Badarayana and Shankaracharya, Badarayana in his sutra answers this. You see in the 28th sutra, he says, not so. Why? He gives one first an explanation why it is not so. For the universe arises from this. And then he says, how do we know this reason? How do we know this universe arises from this? Which fact is proved by both by direct revelation, the pratyaksha, and inference, which is Anumana. Here Shankaracharya explains what is the actual argument of Badarayana is. Badarayana is saying that the said contradiction does not arise because the entire universe consisting of devatas and all other beings, etc., all of them verily originate from Vedic words itself. It is not that devatas, etc., manifest out of thin air. They are the devatas, etc. It is saying they manifest. They have their origin in Vedic word itself. Now here there is a slightly nuanced argument. Here the origination is not in the sense of Upadana Karana, because the Upadana Karana is Brahman. Upadana Karana is not the Vedic word. But here the kind of creation that is speaking, we will see the later when the evidence is proved what exactly the mechanism. But to put it shortly, basically what is being said is that even if even if devatas are emerging at the beginning of each cycle of creation, their emergence is preceded by the Vedic words on the basis of which they are manifested. You see, the Vedic words are causes the emergence of the said devatas, because Vedic words precede the emergence of the devatas, and they are on the basis of these words itself to put into because the on the basis of the Vedic words itself the world is manifested. Here, we'll just clarify what this means in the next slide. Here, the second part of the Badarayana's response is that we know this, that the Vedic words precede emergence of devatas and they cause it. We know this by two evidence. One is Pratyaksha, other is Anumana. Now, Pratyaksha usually means direct perception, Anuman means inference. But here it has a special meaning. And the Shankaracharya clarifies this special meaning. He says the Pratyaksha refers to direct revelation, that is the Shruti, the Vedas. We see this from the Vedas itself. And Anumana here refer to the inferred Shruti. Inferred Shruti is Smriti. The Smriti such as Manusmriti, etc., they have their basis in the Vedas, hence they are called as Anumana or inferred. Or from these Smritis, the Veda can be inferred because they are based on the Veda itself. So here Shankaracharya is clarifying that the Badarayana's reference, his evidence for his assertion, his argumentation is both the Veda as well as the Smriti. And then Shankaracharya quotes Shruti verses from Rig Veda, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, etc. To substantiate the position. And then for Smriti verses, he quotes from Mahabharata and Manusmriti. In Manusmriti, he quotes the first chapter, 21st verse, and here it will it clears the air about what the argument is. In 21st verse, the Manusmriti says, Sarveshantu sa namani karmani cha pratak pratak. In the beginning of the cycle, through the words of the Veda alone, Bhagavan fashioned all of them, all the beings of the words, including devatas, etc., with specific names and activities as also specific stations. You see what is happening in another verse that Shankaracharya quotes. He says, in Bhagavan Brahma, at the beginning of the creation, the creator Brahma, when he wants to create the universe, he recalls in his mind, he gets the memory. Hence also Smriti, right? He gets the memory of the Veda from the previous cycle. And based on that memory of the Veda, of the Vedic words, he then creates the universe of various beings to fit into the description and definition of those Vedic words. We see in the Vedas itself, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, all these are given. So in this way, the Vedic words are the cause of the creation of the universe. Not in the way of Upadana, Karana, but in the way of, it is on the basis of these Vedic words that to fit into the definition of various categories that are mentioned in the Vedic words, the same objects of different belonging to having a larger description that fit to different categories are created in this cycle also. So here you will see that at a very important argument to establish the Devatas also have the adhikara to Brahmagyana, Badarayana himself relies upon not just the Shruti but also the Smriti, and the Smriti quoted by Shankaracharya in this context is the Manusmriti. So for Badarayana and Shankaracharya, Smritis have become then important source of valid knowledge. The Smritis are then Pramana, Pramana-Shastra. That is, they are valid source that reveals authentic knowledge. Now there is one interesting aspect that needs to be understood here is that while Veda is clearly, the term used by Badarayana is Pratyaksha. So Veda is the independent Pramana, whereas Smriti is dependent. That is why it is called as Anumana. That is, it is the compositions of the Smritis are based on the Veda. It is a systematization of the teachings which is originally found in the Veda. Systematization done by various rishis such as Manu, Yagyavalkya, etc. So this is upheld by both Badarayana and Shankaracharya. However, often this argument is made, though no, Veda is important, Smritis are not important, because Smritis is secondary in nature. Veda can override Smriti, etc., so on and so forth. But it is a very important nuanced argument that needs to be understood, that dependent nature of the Smriti do not depreciate its value as it is assumed today. This has been highlighted by both Badarayana and Shankaracharya, who quote this Veda and Smriti side by side. And I want to just bring a small quotation from my new book, Chatushloki Manusmriti, on this Shruti versus Smriti debate. I will just read out quickly. It is important to note that instances where the Veda is said to overcome Smriti, it does not imply that the Smritis have lost their authoritativeness. Instead, it is a case of two alternatives, with one having inherent authority which is directly perceivable, pratyaksha, namely the Veda, which is directly available to us, and the other having inferred authority not directly perceivable, which is the Smritis, whose Vedic basis inferred, but not directly always perceived. This being the case, the alternatives whose authority is directly perceived is preferred over the other as the best option. Therefore, the choice of Vedic stipulation over Smriti stipulation is a matter of preference and not of setting aside of authoritativeness of Smriti per se. So this is especially true when it happens that in 9 out of 10 instances you are accepting some text, but you're rejecting on one particular instance, right? But this is not a case for example, somebody brings up a Charvaka text and then say, oh, okay, so is this means even it is acceptable? No, because Charvaka is completely contradicting Veda in an explicit manner. But no such contradictions can be found in texts such as Manusmriti. Right? So the message of this Adhikaranam as far as Manusmriti's treatment is concerned, Shankaracharya, by explicitly citing Mahabharata and Manusmriti, delineates that he considers both the Smriti genre of text as well as Itihasa Purana genre of text as authoritative. And then another interesting aspect is here, Manusmriti is not cited in the context of pursuit of the pravritti dharma, karmanushtana per se, but in the context of pursuit of moksha. So for Shankaracharya, and by implication for Badarayan also, Manusmriti is an authoritative source which imparts authentic knowledge both with respect to moksha as well as dharma. So not just dharma, but also with respect to moksha. Another instance I want to deal with is in the Viduradhikaranam, wherein again the discussion is about eligibility. In this case, before Viduradhikaranam comes, in Ashramadhikaranam, there was a discussion was taken up how the duties of the four ashramas, the Brahmacharya, Grihastha, etc., they are not only obligatory for the different stages of life. So if you are in a Grihastha life, if you are in a Pravritti Dharma, if you are not a sannyasi, etc., then those duties, ashrama dharma, if you are situated in that ashrama, then they become obligatory. You have to do it. But here, Badarayana and Shankaracharya brings in another aspect, that they are not only obligatory as a duty of the ashrama dharma, but they are also facilitators, cooperators, the facilitators for acquiring Brahmagyana. So they help people by causing chitta shuddhi in the mind and leading them towards moksha. Therefore, they're very, very helpful, very, very necessary, even from the point of pursuit of moksha. After that argument, in the Viduradhikaranam, then a question comes. What about those people who do not belong to any of these four ashramas? Like a widower who has lost his wife. He is neither married, because he was married, but his wife is no longer there, so he's not a grahastha. But he does not have necessary austerity or renunciation, etc., to go for vanaprastha or sannyasa. So he is without ashrama. He is an anashrami. He is between ashramas, you can say, or outside of the ashramas, you can say. So he is without his station, the four well-defined station. What about him? Similarly, there are many others. The implication is, the argument is, though in a narrow sense here happens about the four ashramas, it is happening, it is equally applicable to many others. Say, for example, women, the widows also, and also other women. For women, Stri Dharma or Pativrata Dharma is considered as the major path of Dharma for them. But what about those women who are outside of it? Say for widows, Or say women who are Nagarvadus, that is those who are in the profession of courtesan and prostitution, such. What about them? Don't they have right to pursue Brahmagyana? Are they completely outside the purview of Dharma? Or many others. In today's context, you can speak about what about the movie stars and many others who are not strictly come under the definition of Grihastha Ashrama Dharma. So men, women, everybody, there are many, even for example, some people, who practice certain yoga practices such as who are not following this Varnashrama Dharma. What about them? So all these cases come under the purview of this discussion, though the specific instance is about Vidura, he remains widower. So specific instance is that, so all those who are ineligible to practice Varnashrama Dharma, because they are not stationed in any of the four ashrama in a strictly Shastriya sense, or they are not, they do not belong to any of these strict definitions of Varna, etc., because Varna Shankara and other things. So what about all of them? Do they have eligibility for Brahmagyana or not? Now here, Badarayana and following Badarayana, even Shankaracharya gives a firm answer that yes, they have eligibility. They are not excluded from pursuing Brahmagyana. This is the answer they give very, very clearly. And Badarayana, the reasons the arguments he makes to substantiate his position that everybody is eligible for Brahmagyana, that even those who are not positioned in any of the four ashramas or others who are outside of such Varnashrama designations, even they are eligible. He says that such cases are met with Upanishads. Shankaracharya here gives examples of Gargi Vachaknavi, the Brahmavadini, the lady Brahmavadini with whom Yagyavalkya debated. He also gives example of Raikyava, who was carrying the cart and doing such activities. And in 37th next sutra, Badarayana says that similar thing is mentioned Smriti also. Here Shankaracharya cites from examples from Itihasa Puranas. And then comes the most important argument in the 38th sutra, because the question, it is not enough to say that everybody has adhikara for Brahmagyana. Because the question is how? Because in the case of ashramas, in the Ashramadhikarana, it was clearly stated the practice of ashrama dharma is very, very vital, because they are not only obligatory, but they are also facilitators for acquiring knowledge. They facilitate, they lead one, help one to travel the path towards moksha. Now, because if ashrama dharma one is not eligible, then what means are available for a person to travel that path towards moksha, to gain that eligibility to pursue Brahmagyana, to attain Brahmagyana? What is the way forward? What is the roadmap for them to attain moksha? Here, Badarayana says, in their case, it happens through Vishesha Anugraha, a special favor or through the mechanism. Here, Anugraha or favor means a mechanism or a process, a special kind of process, that is a process which is distinct from the Varnashrama Dharma or Varnashrama institution. Through such special mechanisms, they are also able to gain pursue, walk on the path towards moksha. Therefore, they are also eligible for Brahmagyana. What are these Vishesha Anugraha? Here, Shankaracharya quotes Manusmriti. In the second chapter of Manusmriti, there is a wonderful verse which says, Japye naivatu samsiddhe brahmanos nata samshayaha kuryad anyanna va kuryan maitro brahmanam uchyate. Japye naivatu samsiddhe. It is by the means of japa that a brahmana succeeds. There is no doubt in it. He may or may not do. Kuryat, na kuryat. Whether he does any other duties, any other Varnashrama duties or not, he has to do the japa. That is, here specifically it applies to any other ashrama duties, or in more context, in the Manusmriti context, other this Agnihotradi duties of a Brahmana, whether he does it or not, whether he has the capability to do it or not, but he has to do the japa. In the case of a Brahmana, that japa could be particularly Gayatri, but this is a statement which is, though spoken in the context of the Brahmana, it has a wider application, because in the verse itself, it says japa. It does not say Gayatri japa. Right? So, though in the context of Brahmana, it specifically applies to Gayatri japa, the verse itself, the use of the term phrase japa shows that it is a means available to others also, and that is how Shankaracharya interprets. When Badarayana says it happens to Vishesha Anugraha, the Badarayana's position is substantiated by Shankaracharya using the verse of Manusmriti. Shankaracharya says that the special methods, the Vishesha Anugraha, Vishesha factors constitute such as japa, upavasa, devata aradhana. Japa is the repetition of the mantras, upavasa is fasting, austerity, devata aradhana is worship of the devatas, etc. All these spiritual, ritualistic activities are the special means. And these methods are open for everyone, irrespective of their eligibility for any other path, such as Varna Dharma, Ashrama Dharma, Stri Dharma, Purusha Dharma. Whether they have eligibility for that or not doesn't matter. But this japa, upavasa, devata aradhana is available for everybody, and they are very, very important. So Shankaracharya quotes Manusmriti, and on the basis of that quotation, and he makes this argument. And Shankaracharya here explicitly notes that the verse is from Manu. He does not simply quote it, he explicitly notes that it is a verse from Manu, and these are his words in the highlighted in the red. Shankaracharya says that this verse from Manu shows that even when one is unable to perform any of the ashrama dharma, even then one is eligible for japa, etc. So in this manner, Badarayana and Shankaracharya establishes the eligibility of all humanity to pursue Brahma Vidya, as long as they adopt right methods to achieve the same. So this japa, upavasa, devata aradhana, etc. becomes their dharmic path, becomes dharma for them, through which they attain qualification to pursue Brahma Vidya. So this is a very, very important discussion, because, and most irony is, today, while today the Manusmriti is often perceived as a exclusionary and regressive text, which has a narrow view of dharma and excludes two-thirds of Hindu humanity from practicing dharma, using such concepts as Varna Shankara. I just recently had a debate on Twitter where I was told this, that Manusmriti excludes large section of Hindu society from dharma. However, Shankaracharya uses the Manusmriti itself to uphold eligibility and competence of everyone, all humanity, to pursue Brahmagyana and attain moksha. And he establishes this on the basis of Manusmriti, which provides the special mechanism in the form of japa that could be done by everybody. What exactly that japa is may change from person to person, but the fact that everybody is eligible to do japa is what Manusmriti is revealing, and what Shankaracharya is basing on. So Shankaracharya thus is Manusmriti, or rather the pursuit of dharma and moksha as conceived in Manusmriti, as well as in larger Hindu textual tradition, as all-inclusive, not as exclusive. This episode also shows that for Shankaracharya has clearly demonstrated without doubt that his quotation of Manu and other Smritis, they are not just casual citations meant as ornamentation. Just aise hi bol diya. It is not just casually, simply for the sake of it, he is not quoting it. Nor are they merely a restatement of prevalent social reality. Many people say that quotations of Manusmriti in Apashudradhikarana are merely a restatement of prevalent social reality. But Acharya is not using Manusmriti as a descriptor of social reality. This Adhikarana shows that very clearly. But instead, this Adhikarana, his Acharya's usage, stands testimony to Acharya's acceptance of Manusmriti and other such texts as valid means of knowledge, as a Pramana-Shastra, as far as Dharma and Moksha is concerned. This I won't go in detail because we are coming to closure. I will take another 10 minutes perhaps. In another instance, we have a discussion about whether food restrictions related are applicable to those who pursue Brahmagyana or not. Opponent uses one quotation from Chandogya Upanishad and says that where it says that for a man who knows prana, nothing becomes uneatable. And he says that one who pursues Brahmagyana, he can eat anything and everything. So Badarana says, no, that is not possible because we have specific Smriti citations which do not permit eating of all kinds of food. It says do's and don'ts. And only occasion where such eating anything and everything becomes possible is when there is a threaten to loss of life. There is a problem to life when your life is in danger. This is what Badarayana says. And in this context also, Shankaracharya quotes Manusmriti from his 10th chapter where there is a verse, if a man threatened with the loss of life eats food from stray sources, he does not become tainted with sin. That is, one can eat food from any source when his life is threatened. He will not become tainted with papam. This is again another good example wherein Badarayana and Shankaracharya uses Smritis such as Manu to arrive at correct interpretation of Vedic teaching. So this again is another evidence that for Shankaracharya, Manusmriti is in perfect alignment with the Vedic teaching. Therefore, the Manusmriti is a Anumeya Veda, that is a inferred Veda, so to speak. That is from a text which is based on the Veda, therefore from which the availability of Vedic texts or Vedic teaching can be inferred. So this is how Acharya sees Manusmriti. And in multiple places, Acharya refutes other darshanas such as Sankhya, Vaisheshika, etc. In Brahmasutra Bhashya, he refutes all the different darshanas. And specifically, when he refutes Sankhya and Vaisheshika, he quotes Manusmriti. We won't go into detail, but I want to highlight here a very important argument. In the case of Sankhya, the opponent says that Kapila's views cannot be set aside because Kapila Smriti, Kapila's work is called as a Smriti also, and it says it cannot be rejected because it has to be taken into account because Smritis are also valid. There Badarayana responds that if you accept Kapila's views, which are in direct contradiction to Smriti, the teachings of the Veda, then it will also leads to contradiction with other Smritis which are in alignment with the Veda. So there Shankaracharya quotes Manu etc. as evidence for those Smritis which are in alignment of the Veda and which cannot be rejected on any hand. So while you can reject the argument of Kapila Smriti or Kapila's works because they are opposed to Veda, but also because they are also opposed to Manusmriti and other similar texts which completely follows the Veda. It is here that Shankaracharya is using the Vedic extolation from Taittiriya Samhita where Veda says that Manusmriti is a curative medicine. And here, another interesting thing is Shankaracharya explicitly says that both the Vedas and the words of the Manu, which faithfully follows Vedas, are violated by Kapila. The Sanskrit term used by Shankaracharya is Veda Anusari. Manusmriti is a Veda Anusari. Anusari means it faithfully and completely follows the Veda. Whatever Veda says, it is reiterating, rewriting, rephrasing the same teaching exactly as it is. The words may be different, but the essence of the teaching is exactly as it is. That is how Acharya is describing Manu. In another place also, he says, Shankaracharya says, both Manu and Vyasa are Shishtas. Shishta means simply that one who knows the Veda and one who lives his life by Veda. So Manu is like that. Vyasa is also like that. Is what Shankaracharya says. So these are very, very important arguments that while you can give up Kapila Smriti's arguments on a particular topic, but you cannot give up Manusmriti's argument unless, because Manusmriti is a Vedanusari. However, if there is a direct two different injunctions between Manusmriti and Veda on a particular topic exactly opposite, in that case, they becomes alternatives. However, here, as I mentioned from the quotation from my book, the Vedic alternative becomes more authoritative only in the sense that it is pratyaksha. Here, Manusmriti is not being set aside. Sorry, it is not set aside because Manu is considered as Veda Anusari by Shankaracharya. So at least the followers of Shankaracharya should not set aside Manu and other Smritis as not relevant, not Pramana. Because for Shankaracharya, it was Pramana. And I believe that that was so for all the important Acharyas across different Sampradayas. To conclude, just 2-3 more minutes. From the today's discussion, what becomes, even though we saw in detail only 3-4 instances, especially 2 instances only we discuss in detail, but what is very clear is that the contrary to contemporary view prevalent in some quarters that Advaita is divorced from Dharmashastra, or if we are studying Advaita Vedanta, that is itself enough. Dharma is not needed for us. We don't need to practice Dharma, we don't need to study Dharmashastra, then that is not correct. Because contrary to such prevalent perceptions, Adi Shankaracharya himself has a very nuanced and more importantly, overwhelmingly positive approach to Smriti Shastras, to texts such as Manu, Yagyavalkya and other Smriti texts. Of them, Shankaracharya gives a very special place to Manusmriti as an authentic and authoritative source of knowledge, not only in the context of karma, but also in the context of moksha, both for grihasthas as well as for sannyasins. For Shankara, Manusmriti and Mahabharata are on equal standing, with both Manu and Vyasa being shishtas, knowers and practitioners of Veda. Acharya at many places has cited Manu and Bhagavad Gita also side by side in the same context, calling both of them as Smriti. Again indicating that for him, both of them have a same standing, same standing as far as authoritativeness is concerned. Acharya explicitly indicates his conviction that Manusmriti is authoritative as Veda because Manu is a Veda Anusari. It is a faithful follower of Veda, and which the Veda itself has praised as medicine. Acharya fully accepts this praise, but that is why he has quoted it. To substantiate the greater authoritativeness of Manu compared to Kapila's work, Shankaracharya quotes that verse from Veda that Manu is medicine. Acharya relies upon and cites Manusmriti in multiple contexts, including a refutation of Sankhya and other darshanas which have deviated from Vedic teaching. Another instance is, in many cases, at least in some cases that I examined, Acharya also quotes in 1 or 2 instances the Manusmriti. He portrays the Purvapakshi as quoting Manusmriti also. Even the opponent's quotes from Manusmriti, so opponent also accepts Manusmriti as Pramana. But here, interestingly, while Acharya is responding to Purvapaksha's objection, he never once, at least to my knowledge, limited knowledge, he never once makes an argument that Manusmriti is not authentic or not a Pramana. Just like he made with Kapila's theory of cosmogony, he did not make that argument even once with respect to Manusmriti, even when he is refuting the opponent's view, where opponent has cited Manusmriti. And finally, Acharya's citation of Manusmriti side by side, the Vedas as well as other texts such as Mahabharata, Gita, etc., shows that for him Manusmriti and other Dharmashastra texts are part of the larger Shruti-Smriti Itihasa Purana epistemic framework. All of them are Pramana-Shastras, and each component, that is be Shruti or Smriti Dharmashastra or Itihasa Purana, each component being important and relevant to us as far as matters of Dharma and Moksha are concerned. More importantly, Acharya's treatment of Manusmriti shows that he did not consider it, I am repeating here what I stated earlier, he did not consider Manusmriti as irrelevant, nor did he consider it as merely a documentation of prevalent social practices of his times. He did not even see it as some sort of hegemonically implemented legal text or a religious text in a biblical sense that we superimpose on Manusmriti today. Instead, Acharya simply considered it as a Pramana-Shastra, a text revealing, imparting, teaching valid and authentic knowledge on matters of Dharma and Moksha, particularly Dharma, but also Dharma connected to Moksha, connected to pursuit of Moksha, and a text which closely follows Veda and in complete alignment with the Vedic teachings, and one which can be relied upon for discerning the fundamental principles of the world, discerning the essential teachings of the Veda and other texts, for discerning the very basis of Sanatana Dharma itself. So, with this, I conclude my session. I'm very thankful for all of you for listening to it. I just want to make a small announcement about my book, Chatushloki Manusmriti. This was published just a month ago. The full title is Chatushloki Manusmriti, an English commentary. It was published by Vitasta Publishing, New Delhi, and it is available on all. It is available on Amazon India, on Hindu eShop, and other platforms. It was available on Padega India also till some time back. Maybe it will be available again after some time. Or in major bookstores also it will be available soon. So do buy the book, read and share with all. For having a proper authentic entry into the Dharmashastra tradition beyond the colonial gaze, giving up the colonial gaze. Thank you very much. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, my Twitter or X handle is @NKGRock, and email address is sridhar.nithin@gmail.com. Thank you, everyone, for this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nithinji. One proverb I recollect, that do not judge the book on the basis of cover. On the basis of whatever your 60 minutes presentation, I get to take home that Manusmriti by itself should not be judged purely on the basis of the cover, but it should be interpreted as a support of Dharmashastra for Moksha. Thank you. It was very nice to have heard all those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay.
I will close the session by chanting Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.